in the tender process is the opening of the tenders. Once the client has received the tender, now the customer will proceed to opening the bids. Two different ways that it's done. In the case, in Quebec anyways, in the case of a public tender, they are open the day of the deposit, and normally there are witnesses there to say, okay, yeah, it's this person. And then they will go through the process of validating everything that's in your bid. Did you include all the required documents and whatever criteria they had? And if you are in conformity, then you're the successful bidder and you obtain the contract. Very different for the private sector. For private submissions, the opening date and time and location is at the discretion of the customer. So in our case, sometimes we'll submit our bids to, taking as an example, Goldcorp for the Eleanor mine. Well, they might not make a decision for a week, maybe even 2 weeks after the bids have been submitted, because they're analyzing it, or they realize that they want to change something, so they might issue some addendas to the bidding companies and ask for a revised price. So in the private sector, the customer can open their bids whenever they want. All right, so a couple of examples on the estimation, things to look out for. All right, so in the analysis of the documents included in a solicitation, which is a call for tender, are generally as follows. Invitation to tender. It contains a tender form and the terms of bidding. So the criteria that the client wants you to respect when you're making your bid, and so that everybody is bidding equally on the same job, and that everybody's respecting what the client wants and what form they want it. Sorry about that. All right, so the quote itself, it contains all the technical specifications, quote or scope if you want, all the technical specifications of the work to be done, the administrative part of the work, the qualifications of the bidder, specifications of materials to use, timeline and penalties or bonuses if applicable, and all factors that the estimator will have to consider to estimate closer to reality in achieving the work requested by the client. When just go back to the qualifications of the bidder. Many times they'll ask you for your RBQ licenses, bonding capacities. So before you embark on providing a bid, you should already, with the requirements, have a good idea, do I qualify to deposit a bid or I don't? If you don't have the requested qualifications, you might as well not bid, because usually they will not even consider your bid. All right. Also, in the tender documents, all the necessary plans to complete the project should and usually are included. And these are the documents that will allow the estimator to understand and evaluate the work. A lot of the specifications will come in on a separate document, but having the plans helps the estimator or whoever is going to be doing the contract to visualize the work and get a better idea on what will be required to accomplish this. Also included in the bid documents, and this is always a concern in the north, it will be the necessity of having a soil study, which is usually provided by some engineering firms that went to do some soil tests for the client. A very important part for any bidder to look at, because if you're bidding and you neglect the soil conditions, your estimate might be way off, and could cause you some major losses on that contract. Sometimes also the soil studies that are provided in the bid document will not reflect sometimes what's on the field, but having the bid document and their study, the soil studies, will give you some backup later on when you come back and say, look, I had a hard time because the soil study did not reflect the actual conditions where I was doing the contract. All right, so the analysis of the document will allow us to ensure our eligibility to tender. Like I was saying before, make sure you have all the right licenses, the bonding capacity if it's required. That we have all the guarantees required by the owner. That we reply to any customer requirements. This will usually be your company's, I guess, sort of resume or CV. Usually they'll ask you to show them the similar contracts that you did in the past 2 years or 5 years, depending on whatever they wanna hear. It will also ensure that we hold all necessary licenses required for the work or for the contract, our bonding capacity, and especially our capacity and expertise to do the work. Understand and evaluate the scope of the work in order to estimate it, and in order to estimate it well. Another important part of the bid is the calculation of quantities. This step is to make the statement and calculate quantities of materials required to execute the work. This information will be taken from the plans. The type of material will be defined in plans or in the specifications also. In the case when we do civil works, the plans will identify what kind of material is required. If they don't specify how you're going to get that material or where you're going to get it, it's always a good thing to contact the client and say, have you identified the borrow pits, the quarries where this work is going to be done? It's better to do it that way. I know some companies, they prefer to wait and go into a claim process after, but you're taking chances. It's better to have all the information at the bid stage. All right, so after calculating the quantities, we will be asking for prices from different suppliers for materials and services, so subcontractors if it's required. In the case of a civil project, you might, if there's a quarry, you might need to contact drilling and blasting company, so you'll need a price from them. You'll normally ask them to lock in their price for 30, 60 days, 90 days, just so that if you do get the contract, well, then you have a guarantee from that subcontractor that he's not going to jack up his price the day you get the contract. It does happen, but normally you try to have good relations with your suppliers. All right, so the estimate, the different items of the estimation are the estimated time to deliver the project, the equipment required to complete the project, your materials, your labor, very important, and having prices from all your subcontractors, like I say, locked in, at least with a promise that that's the price they're going to keep for you for the next 30, 60, 90 days. There are various softwares for estimation. In Construction, the one we use is called Progest. This software just makes the whole process faster, and it also links many different activities together, so if you make a mistake somewhere, you'll get some kind of an alert saying you already put this in this item here, so you don't like double or forget certain items. So here we have a sample of what Progest does for us. Don't try copying down the numbers, or we just throw them in there. All right, and then so you'll have all the different items, all the different activities, which will have codes associated to each one. And all your items in a contract, your different items, most of the time they're going to ask you, you'll want to include your manpower in the activity. So if you have 200 meters of storm sewer to install, when you're preparing your bid, you have to calculate the manpower hours it's going to take, and there also your equipment. So what we'll be looking at is the number one, which is the mobilization and demobilization. So when we're talking about mobilization and demobilization, that means when you get a contract, you have to get your people to the site, you have to get your equipment, you might have to bring in your own camps, your kitchen. So this is what's in the mobilization, sorry. So if you see in our program in Progest, it'll indicate to us the resources that we need, our cost, and the quantities, the production. Production is unique to each company. When you're calculating how many, we're talking about feet of storm sewer that you, meters of storm sewer that you install in a day. Our company might do so much, but another company might be faster. They might. So when you're calculating how many meters, it's really from your own experience and knowing your manpower and their productivity, and also your equipment, the quality of your equipment. And then you have the durée, which is the duration of each activity. So in the bottom note, as you can read, I don't know if we can all see it, but it says there that this item is to cover all costs from starting work, mobilization, and the cost to leave the site and recover our equipment, our people, everything that we brought in, we have to take out. Now, in the bid documents that you're sent, sometimes that's not even included. There's no, in the bordereau, which is like I don't see the journal, but I forget how you say it. Anyways, bordereau is your summary that you submit to your client that gives them the big lines for your contract, how you priced your job. If there's no specific line where they ask you to identify how much your mobilization is going to cost and how much your demobilization, then what you have to do is you have to spread it out in your different items. Another very important item that sometimes people might tend to forget is your site organization. There's a cost to that. Especially I've seen like smaller companies that start up, and this is one of the items I always bring up. And they ask me, how do you guys calculate that? Well, same as your production, it comes from experience of knowing, well, we rented a trailer, an office trailer, it cost us $600 a month. So you add all of that in there. Another item that people sometimes fail to calculate properly is your supervision. If you're going to have foremen, superintendents, project manager, safety, security people, make sure you calculate all of those items in your bid from the beginning. So these are two items. So in the note, it summarizes there that this item is supposed to cover all costs for site organization and management. If there is no specific item for site organization, once again, you should include all costs by distributing them in the different items.